Dulce et Decorum Est is a poem written by Wilfred Owen. He was a soldier in the First World War, and he was a poet. He was killed 1 week before the armistice. He was 25. The title of this poem is a Latin phrase from the Roman poet Horace. In English, it is sweet and proper to die for one's country. Why is this phrase the name of the poem? Well, we are going to have to read the poem to find out. If you haven't read this poem already, please read it through once or twice before watching this commentary. I'm going to analyze this poem in pieces, and that is not the best way to encounter a poem for the first time. Here are the first 4 lines. Bent double like old beggars under sacks, knock-kneed, coughing like hags, we cursed through the sludge, till on the haunting flares we turned our backs, and toward our distant rest began to trudge. This first bit describes a group of soldiers. The speaker uses personal pronouns indicating that he is one of them. They are doubled over with exhaustion, not from their march so much, but from the experiences of their time on the front lines. In the trenches, they cough like hags, and each exhalation carries a curse. This is probably both literal and figurative, as it describes their mental as well as physical states. Notice that they are walking through the mud, but Owen says they trudge in the sludge. Trudging connotes heavy exhaustion, and sludge is far more than dirty. It's foul. It was common for entrenched armies to keep an eye on each other. At night they shot these flares into the sky to illuminate no man's land. The flares would slowly float down under little parachutes. They were haunting. These soldiers have turned their backs on the front and are trudging away from the trenches to a back area for some much-needed rest and recovery. Men marched asleep. Many had lost their boots but limped on bloodshot. All went lame, all blind, drunk with fatigue, deaf even to the hoots of gas shells dropping softly behind. Again, the sheer exhaustion is emphasized. Not only are they profoundly tired, some are without boots. They are bloodshod. A horse that wears horseshoes is said to be shod. This is a dehumanizing comparison. And their fatigue is so great that it dulls their very senses. They don't hear the gas shells. These are shells that are fired from artillery guns. They released toxic chemicals like phosgene, chlorine, and mustard gas. These gases cause severe respiratory damage, blindness, and painful blisters on exposed skin. Soldiers carried gas masks to protect themselves. Gas, gas, quick boys! An ecstasy of fumbling, fitting the clumsy helmets just in time, but someone still was yelling out and stumbling and floundering like a man in fire or lime. It is imperative to get the mask on quickly, but these men are in such a state that this is not a simple task. There is an ecstasy of fumbling. This is such a powerful phrase. It's a sort of an oxymoron in that it combines ecstasy, which is usually associated with pleasure or joy, with fumbling, which suggests ineptitude and clumsiness. It's ironic as well, because ecstasy here is not about a state of bliss, but a frenzy as the soldiers try to get their masks on. What we have in these 3 words is bone weariness, and adrenaline caused by terror, resulting in ineptitude in soldiers who a few seconds ago were marching asleep. Most got their clumsy helmets and masks on, just in time, but not everybody. But someone was still yelling out. They are supposed to all have their masks on by now, but the speaker hears an unobstructed cry. He sees this poor guy through the greenish lenses of his gas mask. He's in obvious distress, foundering like a man on fire or lime. You know about fire. Lime would be quicklime. It's a caustic substance that can cause severe chemical burns on your skin. We get a very specific description of all this through the eyes of the speaker in his gas mask. Dim through the misty panes and thick green light, as under a green sea I saw him drowning. So the gas attack in the second section needs to be understood in the context of the first. The soldiers are mentally and physically weary to the point of senselessness. These men need to act with sudden, urgent efficiency in order to survive. The speaker steps out of this event to some point in the future where it all comes back to him. In all my dreams before my helpless sight, he plunges at me, guttering, choking, drowning. The shortness of this section gives it emphasis. The speaker cannot help remembering what happened that day, any more than he could help the maskless soldier at the time. In his dreams or reflections, the dying soldier plunges at me. He's desperately reaching out for help, guttering, choking, drowning. Even though the speaker is dreaming this, these words are immediate and present, and so auditory. Can you hear the guilt in these lines, along with the trauma? In the last section, the speaker stays in this reflective mode while he's talking directly to us, the readers. If in some smothering dreams you too could pace behind the wagon we flung him in, and watch the white eyes writhing in his face, his hanging face like a devil's sick of sin, if you could hear, at every jolt, the blood come gargling from the froth-corrupted lungs, obscene as cancer, bitter as the cut of vile, incurable sores on innocent tongues. This passage is so rich and horrible. They flung him into a wagon. There was so much death in that war. There was no time for ceremony or even respectful treatment of a body, of a comrade. The writhing eyes and hanging face, these things show the vividness, the horror, the recollection, that the speaker couldn't stop looking at it. His face was like a devil's sick of sin. What a simile. This event was wretched enough to sate a devil's sin appetite. That's extreme. This whole experience was obscene as cancer. Cancer back in Owen's day was more obscene than it is now. And it was as bitter as the cud of vile, incurable sores on innocent tongues. This part about chewing the cud, ruminants like cows chew a cud to help them digest their food. When we think long and carefully about something, we are said to be ruminating. The speaker is forced to ruminate on this bitter memory. And it's not just bitter, it's worse because he's chewing on this memory with vile, incurable sores in his mouth. That's the idea. This phrase also describes the physical effects of the gas on the soldiers' bodies. The gas was particularly damaging to mucous membranes, eyes and mouth and throat. The sores are vile because what happened that day is disgusting and morally reprehensible. The sores are incurable because the living memory of that event never goes away. This is what the speaker has to live with, and he continues to address the reader directly. A few lines back we had the word if. If you had been there and seen this, my friend, you would not tell with such high zest to children ardent for some desperate glory the old lie. It is sweet and proper to die for one's country. The speaker addresses the reader as my friend. This direct address makes it more personal. He says that if you had witnessed the horrors that I have, one of which I have just related to you, you would not tell children, young boys or even young men, the old lie. The lie that goes all the way back to Roman times. The lie that has been perpetuated in England for generations. The lie is this: Dulce et decorum est pro patria more. Because it is neither sweet nor proper for a young man to die for his country. He told us only about one death, but it's pretty clear that the author is making a universal claim. Owen attempts to dispel the myth about the glory of war. He speaks to those who spread the lie and those who might believe it. Between Horace and 1914, it was still possible to believe in the old lie. But the First World War changed all that. And it also changed who we are. Because this wasn't the only lie that was exposed by the war to end all wars. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.